My name is Carolyn Robertson. I'm an Anglican priest from Christchurch, New Zealand. On March the 15th last year, I was on my way to a meeting and I was in a bit of a rush. As I was going down one street, I noticed there was a gathering of police cars beginning to form. I was watching curiously what was going on, but I carried on in a hurry, got to the school. A few minutes later, to be ushered into the staff room and told that there was a lockdown because there had been some shooting. So for the next 3 hours, I sat with about 50 other parents in the staff room. Our children were locked in the school, wondering what was going on. News began to filter through that people had been shot and killed. Initially, the numbers were quite low, 3 or 4, 5 or 6. Then the numbers grew, and so did the other stories. We were told there were maybe 9 shooters. The news came through that there was a bomb on the street where I live. The police helicopters started flying overhead, and as this began to unfold and we sat separated from our children, there was this distinct level of fear and anxiety that grew amongst the parents, and some of them were crying, some were praying, some were desperately calling loved ones, and we sat and anxiously waited, thinking surely it can't be that bad. So in early evening we got the word that it was probably safe enough for us to take our children home, so we quickly ushered our children into the cars and drove out onto the streets, and they were eerily quiet. There was no one in the city. It was a strange feeling, and one that night punctured by fear and anxiety again. We went home, we locked the doors, we went into a quiet part of the house, just watched the news to see what was happening. Helicopters were flying overhead still. We just sort of waited and prayed through that night to see what was happening in our city. And I think the really incredible thing that happened out of that fear that could have driven us to stay isolated and in our homes and to act in fear towards others, to act with suspicion, to act with hostility. Out of that instead came this overwhelming sense that we needed to reach out and connect with those around us. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern came out and she showed her compassion and empathy, and she hugged those that she met and really set the tone and carried what was already happening on in our city. People started beginning to cook halal meals for their neighbours. School students organised events to gather and to mark what had happened. There were combined church services that occurred. And that had come about because someone had heard that a woman was afraid to go out of the house without a headscarf, and the whole of the community and the whole of New Zealand really felt women needed to feel safe, and many hundreds of thousands of people joined in with that and wore headscarves to show our solidarity and our commitment and our love for the people that were hurting in that time. And it was a time really of showing, I think, the best part of the city, that this was a city that wanted to welcome the neighbour that they didn't know so well, that wanted to welcome people from overseas, that wanted to embrace refugees that had come to the country thinking they would be safe, and wanted to show them that this was a place where they were loved and welcomed, and this was a place that they should be able to call home to. And it was a rejection of values of fear and hate and hostility and isolation, and it was instead a demonstration of the values of community and of love and commitment and of welcoming neighbours to our shores.